This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social. Delighted to be joined by former two-weight world champion turned trainer of world champions, Mr. John David Jackson. We're here at the Joyce-Jennings press conference ahead of their bout on Saturday night. How are you, John?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for joining us. We briefly mentioned it off camera, but been in England long?
Oh, we got in Monday morning, and luckily it's not my first time here. It's a beautiful place. I love England, and it's a pleasure to be here.
So your man, Jennings, faces Joe Joyce. First and foremost, talk to me about the fight.
It should be an interesting fight. Joyce is used to be a face-first guy, but I guess they say they got him moving his head now. He's very dangerous. Throws a lot of punches. It should be an interesting fight. I have a pretty good plan for Brian. If he follows that plan, we should be victorious. But it's a very good, interesting fight for the fans to see.
How much did you? I mean, you've listed some of Joe's attributes, but how familiar are you with his career so far? Obviously, he boxed Bermane Stavern, a version of Bermane Stavern, should we say, in one of his more recent fights. Have you followed a lot of his professional career to today?
I didn't really follow Joe at all. I hate to say it, to be honest with most people, I don't follow boxing the way I once did. I only follow the fighters that my guys are fighting. And so once the name came up and we realized that the contract was signed, I began to do research on Joyce. I watched more of his amateur fights because up until now, he hasn't really changed much as a pro. We'll see come Saturday night what his new trainer's done with him. But he hasn't changed much from his amateur style. He gets hit all the time. I told Brian, there's not a punch that he hasn't been thrown, that he's been thrown at him that he doesn't like. He likes all the punches that come at him because he gets hit a lot. So if his trainer was able to get him to be able to move his head, it's a more interesting fight for us because now the things that I've projected for Brian to do, he might be able to offset that if he has better defense. But the thing I want the fans to realize, once a fighter gets hit, he reverts back to the things that he did before. So I'm not worried about the defense because his offense is his defense. So we have to combat that. And, Brian's strong, good fighter. His only problem is he didn't start amateur the way I did, a lot of other fighters did from 8 or 9. He turned pro late in his career. So sometimes some things aren't that sure for him. He thinks, sometimes he thinks. But for this fight here, he has to let it all hang out because if he loses, he's in a bad position boxing-wise because now he has to start from the bottom level. He's been blessed to have this opportunity to fight Joyce, whom is pretty much being talked about as a title contender, only 9 fights. He really hasn't had a chance to learn his profession, his craft, with 9 pro fights. Honestly, most fighters are being rushed nowadays. He should have at least about 20 fights, if not more, to learn your craft. But that's okay. I don't mind that because he says he still makes a lot of mistakes, and it's up to Brian to capitalize on the mistakes. And I've studied Joyce, dangerous fighter, big volume puncher, but he leaves a lot of possibilities to be beaten out there because certain things just aren't really, they hasn't been taught. Now, this new guy, I don't know what he's taught him. I don't know his what he can really do. But if he can teach him, and Joyce can take that and make him a better fighter that night, then he's a hell of a shot. It's a 50-50 fight.
Sorry. You mentioned an interesting point there about Joe's turned over late not in his career, but he had an extensive amateur career, turned over in his 30s. From your own experiences as boxing as an amateur and then turning over as a professional, how long did it take you to kind of make that transition that everybody talks about from amateur to professional boxing?
Actually, it wasn't long because I'd been boxing since I was 7. And all I ever wanted to do was become a professional fighter. My whole amateur career, I couldn't wait to become a professional fighter. And, that's one of the mistakes I made is passing the Olympic trials, U.S. Olympic trials, to just go turn pro. For me, it wasn't hard. And most amateurs that turn pro, the transition is rather easy because you've been boxing so long. Boxing becomes second nature for you. Then you get guys like Joyce stayed a long time. Could that have hurt him a little bit? Maybe yes, because his transition to professional, he's used to fighting in the amateur style. So to make the transition for him might be a little, a little more of a task because it's going to take him a little bit longer to get it. But the way he punches and the way he fights, it won't take him a long, long time because his volume of punching is tremendous for a big guy. A lot of those shots, though, aren't well placed. There's a lot of them, but they're not well placed sometimes. That helps us. I just think that for him, the transition is starting to take place now for him, from amateur to professional. And the more he fights, the better he gets. It just hopefully that night it doesn't click for him.
How much can Bryant learn from his last outing against Oscar Rivas? We had a similar-ish situation with Oscar Rivas, who's a come-forward fighter, throws a lot of punches. Bryant, by all accounts, was let's say doing very well in that fight up to the point of stoppage. How much can he take from that, and how much will he learn from that going into a similar type of fight against Joe Joyce?
Well, the main thing to me that he takes from that fight is the fact that his defense. I don't know why he got on the ropes in round 12. He had the fight won, and for some reason he just did the shell-like defense. You can't do that against this guy here. You can't do that. So he has to. The biggest mistake that he has to correct, and we've worked on it, is not to get in that shell-like defense on the ropes with Joyce, because that could spell disaster for you. He likes to throw a lot of shots, and each shot has bad intentions. So Brian just has to be smart and calculated in what he's going to do. But Brian is a very strong, for a vegan, he's strong. He has to let Joe know that he's in there. He has to hit Joe, to me, mainly to the body, and let him know we're here to fight. Everybody understands pain. Trust me. I know Joyce is indestructible, but everybody understands pain. And if Brian lands the body shots to make this guy really understand what's going on, it can change the whole structure of the fight.
At this stage of Bryant's career, coming off of a loss against Oscar Rivas, if he were to lose against Joe Joyce, would that be kind of it? Is that giving him an additional motivation going into this fight?
I believe it does. No fighter wants to end his career on a loss. And he knows that there's so many things for him. With the division, heavyweight division is hot right now. One win puts you back on top and in the $1 million bracket. So for him, the win it means a lot to him, and he needs it. And that's what we're here for. You just say you have to lay it all on the line, because if you don't and you lose, you're in a bad position.
And just finally, how much do you know about Daniel Dubois and Nathan Gorman, who will be, I think, co-feature on Saturday night? How much do you know about those guys?
I don't know a thing about either opponent. So I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know a thing about either opponent.
Okay, well, that's very honest of you. Thanks very much for that. John David Jackson, real pleasure catching up with you. I hope to catch up with you as well next in the week. I've got some interesting things planned for you. All good, all positive, don't worry. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to talking to you again, speaking with you again.
Thank you.